Hi, hope you're doing great. I'm Jacob, and in this video I want to share with you an awesome design concept or design tool which is used in all art forms, all the way from illustration to painting to sculpture and even films. But before I get into the details, let me share with you a few images. You will notice a certain intelligence in the layout and presentation aspect of these artworks. An artwork is about what is in the composition. It's also about the rest of the space in the composition, which complements and highlights the main content or the subject of the composition. And that is the topic of this video. We will try to discuss and understand negative space. So every object occupies some space. The space that Tom occupies in this frame is his positive space because he is in that space. The rest of the space is his negative space. In this case, it also includes the area within the bend of his arm. So we are not looking at Tom but the space around Tom. And Tom's negative space is considered strong if it forms an artistically relevant or interesting shape. The internet is full of awesome examples in which negative space has been used intelligently to create readable and highly impactful artwork. The most famous example online is probably the Rubens vase. In this image, two heads are pointed towards each other, and the interaction between the two creates a negative space which takes the shape of a vase. The visual presence of this negative space is so dominant that it almost becomes the central focus of the image, and the two heads need to be pointed out to become visible. Let's go back once again to that pose of Tom in the Tom and Jerry clip. So I'll try to redraw this pose in another way. Let's compare the two poses. You can clearly see that the negative space of my new drawing is not as readable and strong as the original drawing. Let's look at another example. In this image, there are two characters facing the camera. The undertone of the pose on the left is aggression, and the undertone of the pose on the right is more like submission. And yet, the negative space of both these poses is very similar. One way to add more value to the aggression in this drawing would be to make the arms more readable in the negative space. Here's another example. In this, there's a guy pulling a branch of a tree and also talking to someone on a phone. On the right side is a drawing of the same action drawn differently. The negative space of this interaction is clearly readable, and there's a lot of breathing space around all the acting elements. In this image, there is no breathing space for the acting elements. His facial expression is almost overlapped by his hand and the phone, and the negative space of his body language is drowned in a bunch of leaves moving towards us. When we draw, it's mostly about trying to communicate a concept or a story or an emotion or a feeling. It's not always about a single character giving a dramatic pose or a scenic image where nothing is happening. When you need to communicate a story or a concept, it's about highlighting an interaction within the composition. The interaction in this rough sketch is an argument. To have the desired visual impact in the final artwork, the negative space of this rough should have a shape which is relevant to the essence or feeling of an argument. This shape could be about a feeling of togetherness, a feeling of weight, or a feeling of fear or menace. It could be the negative space of an explosion. In this case, it's an interaction between the explosion and the elements around the premises which are impacted by the explosion. It could be a feeling of submission or a feeling of dominance, and the negative space of this interaction needs to be clear and readable. I will now share with you a short action clip from a retro Western film which was noted in its time for its grand visuals and superb cinematography. Observe closely how each shot has been composed for maximum graphic impact. It's a good idea to grab some pencil and paper and try to make some quick sketches of compositions that you like as you watch this movie. Let's have a quick recap of what we have covered so far. Negative space of a subject is the space around and between the subject within a composition. While doing the rough sketches, it's a good idea to also observe closely the negative space of the backdrop of the composition, so that besides establishing the premises, it also enhances the readability of the main interaction. Next time you browse through a comic or watch a good movie, observe how frames have been composed and how this elevates and strengthens the storytelling process. If you liked this video, do give me a thumbs up and do subscribe and share with your friends. Until next time, keep filling up those sketchbooks. Take care and be safe.